Earth's first encounter with the Galactic Council happened in 2157. The UES Horizon, Earth's most advanced starship, approached the massive Council station orbiting a neutral star system. Captain John Miller stood on the bridge, his blue uniform pressed perfectly for this historic moment. Receiving docking instructions, Captain, said Communications Officer Karen Wilson. Miller nodded. Take us in slowly, Lieutenant Grant. Let's make a good impression. As the Horizon glided toward the station, the crew caught glimpses of various alien vessels. Sleek ships with curves that seemed impossible by human engineering standards. Massive carriers that dwarfed their vessel. Strange geometric constructions that defied conventional design logic. The docking procedure went smoothly, and Miller led his diplomatic team through the airlock. They were greeted by Council representatives, a diverse group of 7 different species. The tallest, a blue-skinned humanoid with 4 arms, stepped forward. I am Ambassador Zexril of the Vexari Confederation, Council Greeting Officer. Welcome, humans, to galactic civilization. His translator device made his words sound slightly mechanical. Miller performed the practiced bow. Captain John Miller of Earth United Nations, we are honored to be received. The diplomatic team was escorted through massive hallways filled with representatives from dozens of species. Some looked almost human, while others resembled nothing Earth scientists had imagined. Miller maintained his diplomatic composure despite the stares and whispers that followed them. The council chamber itself was a vast amphitheater with 7 massive thrones for the primary council races and hundreds of smaller seats for lesser members and observers. Earth's team was directed to a small platform in the center. The Zithari representative, a reptilian being with iridescent scales, leaned forward on his throne. The Council acknowledges Earth's achievement of faster-than-light travel and grants this hearing for potential membership consideration. Miller presented Earth's case eloquently, describing human history, cultures, and technological achievements. When he mentioned Earth's defensive capabilities, several Council members exchanged glances. You still use physical projectile weapons? Asked the Krell representative, a bulky creature with dense, armor-like skin. We utilize various defensive technologies, including kinetic energy weapons. Yes, Miller replied. Laughter rippled through the chamber. The Zithari representative hissed something to his aide, who laughed loudly. Ambassador Zexril explained. You must understand, Captain Miller, advanced civilizations abandoned physical projectiles millennia ago. Energy-based weapons are far superior in every way. Miller noticed several aliens pointing at the standard-issue sidearm on its hip, clearly amused. The Zithari spoke directly now. These primitive metal throwers you call guns are museum pieces to us. Our shields can deflect any physical object. This is why we find it quaint. Miller maintained his diplomatic smile. We look forward to learning from the Council's advanced technologies. After hours of questioning and deliberation, the Council reached their decision. Earth would be granted provisional member status with limited rights and access to certain technologies. Military technologies would not be shared until humans proved their cultural maturity. Later, aboard the Horizon, Miller met with his senior staff. They think we're children playing with toys, said Security Chief Frank Webb, clearly irritated. Miller nodded. Let them think what they want. We'll accept their terms and learn what we can. What about their dismissal of our weapon systems? Asked Lieutenant Grant. Miller looked out the viewport at the massive Council station. Sometimes being underestimated is an advantage, Lieutenant. We'll continue our military development quietly. If these Council races have relied on energy shields for millennia, they might have blind spots we don't. The Horizon departed the next day, carrying news of humanity's new but limited place in the galactic community. What the Council didn't realize was that humanity had no intention of abandoning the weapons they had laughed at, weapons that would soon prove their worth in ways the advanced aliens never anticipated. 5 years after first contact, tensions rose along the borders of human space. The Krell Empire, one of the Council's founding members, began aggressive expansion toward Earth's outlying colonies. Lieutenant Samantha Hayes, a diplomatic officer with military intelligence training, was assigned to investigate reports of Krell vessels near New Montana, humanity's farthest colony. Hayes arrived at New Montana aboard the UES Sentinel, a small but fast diplomatic vessel. Governor Paul Wright met her at the spaceport, his face lined with worry. "They've been testing our boundaries for weeks," Wright explained as they drove toward the colony's main settlement. 3 Krell scout ships approached within our territorial limit yesterday. "Any hostile actions?" Hayes asked, watching the colony's modest defenses as they passed. "Not yet, but their communications have become increasingly demanding." In her temporary office, Hayes reviewed sensor data from the colony's rudimentary detection grid. The patterns were clear. The Krell were systematically mapping New Montana's defenses and resources. "We need to strengthen your defensive capabilities," Hayes told the Colonial Defense Council that evening. "The Krell are planning something. The Council won't allow it," said Security Director Alan Foster. "Any military buildup would violate our provisional status." Hayes frowned. "Then we'll need to be creative." She spent the next week sending urgent reports to both Earth Command and the Council representatives. The Council's response came quickly. A blue-skinned Vexari advisor arrived to assess the situation. "These are merely standard Krell patrol patterns," the advisor, Zektor, explained dismissively. "Your inexperience with galactic affairs is causing unnecessary alarm." Hayes showed him the latest sensor readings. "They have positioned 15 warships just beyond our recognized boundary. This is a military buildup." Zektor studied the data with 4 bored eyes. "If you're concerned, perhaps the wisest course would be to consider voluntary relocation. This colony is quite far from your core systems." "You're suggesting we abandon our colony?" Hayes asked incredulously. "It would prevent potential conflicts," Zektor replied smoothly. "The Krell have historical claims to this sector that predate your arrival." After the Vexari left, Hayes contacted Earth Command through a secure channel. "They're setting us up," she reported. "The Council won't intervene if the Krell move against us." Admiral William Porter's face was grim on the screen. "We suspected as much. We're sending you encrypted plans for defensive preparations that won't trigger Council monitoring. Meanwhile, we're accelerating development of the new kinetic weapon systems." When the channel closed, Hayes immediately began working with Director Foster. They disguised weapons training as emergency response drills. Mining equipment was modified for potential defensive use. Civilian ships practiced evacuation patterns that could double as defensive formations. 2 weeks later, Hayes observed a Krell ambassador dismissing human protests during a council meeting broadcast. "Humans exaggerate threats due to their primitive defensive capabilities," the Krell representative said to amused agreement from several council members. That night, Hayes received word from Earth Command. The new railgun prototypes had successfully bypassed the energy shield technology used by Council races during secret tests. "Don't deploy them yet," Admiral Porter instructed. "Let the Krell and Council continue to underestimate us." Hayes watched New Montana's sunset from the colony's defensive command center, newly disguised as an environmental monitoring station. In the distance, colonists were conducting agricultural exercises that were actually combat drills. "They think we're helpless," Foster said, joining her at the window. Hayes nodded. "And that misunderstanding might be our greatest advantage when they finally make their move." In orbit around a nearby moon, hidden from colony sensors, a Krell battle group was assembling, their commanders confident that the primitive humans would surrender when faced with superior technology. The warning signs were clear to Hayes. War was coming to New Montana, whether the Council acknowledged it or not. The attack began without warning. Krell warships appeared in New Montana's sky one morning, their energy weapons cutting through the colony's defensive perimeter. The colonists had barely 10 minutes to reach shelters before the first bombardment hit. Major Daniel Clark, who had arrived secretly 2 weeks earlier with a unit of Earth Special Forces, activated the colony's hidden defense network. The Krell expected a quick surrender from what they believed was an undefended civilian outpost. All units, defensive positions, Clark ordered through his secure communicator. Remember your training. Wait for targets to enter optimal range. From his command post beneath the colony's main administration building, Clark watched sensor readings as Krell landing craft deployed. The alien soldiers moved with confidence, their energy shields glowing around them as they advanced toward the settlement. "They're not even bothering with proper formation," observed Sergeant Linda West. "They don't expect resistance." Clark nodded grimly. "Let's change their expectations. Activate defensive grid." Automated defense turrets rose from hidden bunkers around the colony perimeter. The Krell noticed too late as the weapons locked onto their positions. The first volley of standard projectile weapons hit the Krell shields and dissipated harmlessly, exactly as expected. The alien commander's translated voice came through on an open channel, filled with amusement. "Your primitive weapons cannot harm us. Surrender now, and your people will be treated fairly under Krell authority." Clark gave the signal. "Deploy railguns." A second set of weapons emerged from hiding places throughout the colony. These didn't look like conventional human weapons. They were sleeker, with magnetic acceleration coils visible along their barrels. Fire. The rail guns launched metal projectiles at velocities no standard human weapon could achieve. The specialized ammunition, developed in secret Earth laboratories, moved so fast that the Krell shields couldn't fully form an energy response. The projectiles passed through it as if the shields weren't there, striking Krell soldiers directly. Confusion spread through the Krell ranks as soldiers fell. Their commander demanded explanations from his shield technicians. "Impossible," the Krell commander broadcast. "Your weapons are ineffective against our technology." Clark didn't respond to the transmission. Instead, he ordered his forces to advance from their hidden positions. Colonists emerged from buildings wearing lightweight armor and carrying the new weapons. The Krell, suddenly defensive, called for reinforcements. 3 more of their vessels descended through the atmosphere. "They're bringing in heavy support," West reported. "Good," Clark said. "That means they're taking us seriously now." Before the reinforcements could deploy, an urgent transmission came through all channels. This one from the Galactic Council. "This is Council Arbitrator Vexnil. A ceasefire is hereby ordered. All combatants must stand down immediately." Clark ordered his forces to hold position but maintain readiness. The Krell, surprisingly, also paused their attack. 6 hours later, Clark sat in a hastily arranged meeting with the Council Arbitrator, the Krell commander, and Lieutenant Hayes, who represented Earth's diplomatic interests. "The humans provoked this conflict," the Krell commander insisted. "This colony violates historical Krell territorial claims." Hayes presented evidence of the unprovoked Krell attack, but the arbitrator seemed uninterested. "Regardless of how this began, the Council orders an immediate withdrawal of forces while negotiations proceed," Vexnil stated. As the meeting concluded, Hayes received an encrypted message from Earth Command. 3 more human colonies had been attacked while the Council negotiated at New Montana. "They're using the talks to distract us," Hayes whispered to Clark as they left the meeting. Clark nodded. "But they've learned something important today. Our guns work. And now they're afraid." Throughout human space, Earth Command was quietly deploying the new weapons to all colonies. The Council might have laughed at human guns, but that laughter had stopped the moment they fired. Admiral Lisa Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, Earth's newest warship. Unlike earlier human vessels that tried to mimic alien designs, the Defiant embraced human engineering principles. Its most notable features were the 4 massive Thunderbolt mass accelerator weapons mounted along its hull. "We've received clearance to approach the Council station, Admiral," reported Navigation Officer Eric Bennett. Rodriguez nodded. "Take us in slowly. Let them get a good look at us." The Defiant led a small battle group of 5 ships toward the massive Council station. Representatives from all 7 major Council races had gathered for what Earth had requested as an emergency demonstration session. Council communications channels buzzed with speculation and amusement. The Zithari delegates' comment was picked up by human monitoring systems. The primitives wished to impress us with their toys before surrendering their colonies. Inside the council observation deck, representatives gathered before the massive viewing windows. Rodriguez was escorted in by council security, her blue Earth Force uniform standing out among the various alien formal wear. "The council recognizes Admiral Lisa Rodriguez of Earth," announced the Ellerin chairperson, a tall, willowy being with silver skin. "You have requested this extraordinary session to demonstrate human military capabilities." Rodriguez stepped forward. "Thank you, Chairperson. In light of ongoing Krell aggression against our colonies and the Council's failure to intervene, Earth believes a demonstration is necessary." The Krell representative hissed. "This is a waste of Council resources." "Perhaps," Rodriguez replied calmly, "but I invite the Council's military experts to examine our capabilities directly." 3 military advisors from different Council races stepped forward. Rodriguez handed them access tablets. "These will connect to the Defiance systems. You can verify that what we demonstrate is not a trick." The advisors looked skeptical, but accepted the tablets. Rodriguez gestured toward the viewport, where a derelict Krell battlecruiser floated in space, positioned there with Council permission. "This abandoned vessel has been prepared as our target. It's fully powered but unmanned." The Krell representative scoffed. "Our discarded technology is still superior to your best weapons." Rodriguez turned to the military advisors. "Please activate all defensive systems on the target vessel." The advisors entered commands, and the battlecruiser's shields flared to life. The same energy shield technology that had protected Krell forces during their attacks on human colonies. "Shields at full power," confirmed the Vexari advisor. "No conventional weapon could penetrate them." Rodriguez tapped her communication badge. "Defiant, this is Admiral Rodriguez. Target is prepared. Fire when ready." The observation deck fell silent as everyone watched. On the Defiant, Weapons Officer Natalie Young entered the firing sequence. "Thunderbolt 1 charging." "Ready," she reported. "Firing." The first mass accelerator fired with surprisingly little visible effect, just a brief blue flash at the muzzle. Less than a second later, the Krell battlecruiser shuddered as something punched straight through its shields and impacted the hull, creating a massive breach. Gasps and exclamations filled the council chamber. "Impossible," shouted the Krell representative. "Thunderbolt 2, fire," came Rodriguez's calm order. Another flash, another devastating impact. This time, the projectile passed completely through the vessel, exiting the other side. The military advisors stared at their tablets in disbelief. The shields had registered no failure. The projectiles had simply passed through as if the shields weren't there. "What you're witnessing," Rodriguez explained to the stunned council, "is our Thunderbolt mass accelerator system. It fires specialized projectiles at velocities that energy shields cannot react to properly. This violates council weapon limitations." The Krell representative shouted. The Ellerin chairperson raised a hand for silence. "Admiral, why have you shown us this capability?" Rodriguez looked directly at the Krell representative. "Because the Krell need to understand that their attacks on our colonies will no longer succeed. And the Council needs to understand that humanity will defend itself, with or without Council support." The chamber remained silent as the implications became clear. The humans, dismissed as primitives with their projectile weapons, had developed something that rendered the Council's primary defensive technology useless. "Negotiations for the withdrawal of Krell forces from human colonies will begin immediately," Rodriguez stated firmly. "We prefer peace, but as you've just seen, we are prepared for the alternative." The council chamber erupted into chaos after Admiral Rodriguez's demonstration. The Krell representative pounded the table with his armored fist, his translator barely keeping up with his angry words. "This technology must be surrendered to council control immediately. It destabilizes the entire balance of power in the galaxy." The Krell's skin had darkened to a deep crimson, a sign of extreme agitation in their species. Rodriguez remained calm. Earth will not surrender its defensive capabilities while under active attack. The Ellerin chairperson called for order. This technology is concerning. How widely deployed is it? Every human colony and vessel now carries these weapons, Rodriguez answered truthfully. The deployment was completed 3 weeks ago. This announcement sent another wave of murmurs through the chamber. The Vexari representative leaned forward with all 4 of his arms spread in a gesture of openness. Perhaps we should discuss this privately, he suggested to Rodriguez. The council called for a recess. As the delegates filed out, Rodriguez noticed the Ellerin representative discreetly signal her to follow. In a small side chamber, Rodriguez found herself facing both the Ellerin and Vexari representatives. Your weapons have changed everything, the Ellerin said without preamble. The Krell have dominated council politics through military threat for centuries. The Vexari nodded. We have technologies we could share, if Earth would consider an alliance. Rodriguez was carefully recording this conversation for Earth Command when her communication badge emitted an urgent tone. Admiral, emergency broadcast from Saturn Defense Station, her aide reported. The Krell have launched an attack. The Ellerin and Vexari exchanged alarmed glances as Rodriguez accessed the transmission. The situation became clear quickly. A Krell battle fleet had bypassed Earth's outer warning systems and struck directly at the defense station orbiting Saturn. On the station, Commander Kevin Ward had received only 2 minutes warning before the Krell ships arrived. Unlike the colonial attacks, this was the Krell's elite fleet with their most advanced vessels. All personnel to battle stations, Ward ordered calmly. Activate the orbital defense grid. The Krell expected to catch Earth's main military installation unprepared. Their intelligence suggested the new human weapons were limited to frontline ships like the Defiant. They didn't know that Ward had personally overseen the installation of Thunderbolt technology throughout Saturn's defense network. The Krell commander opened a channel. Surrender the station and all weapon schematics, or be destroyed. Ward's response was brief. Negative. The Krell opened fire, their energy weapons blazing toward the station. Ward waited until the Krell ships committed to their attack run. Defense grid active. All units, fire at will. Hundreds of concealed weapon platforms around Saturn and its moons activated simultaneously. The Thunderbolt projectiles tore through the Krell vessel's shields, causing catastrophic damage. Ships that had survived countless battles in Council space fell apart under the barrage. Back in the Council chamber, Rodriguez showed the real-time footage to the stunned representatives. The Krell attacked without provocation. Again, she stated firmly, Earth will defend itself. The Krell representative could not deny what the entire Council was watching. The complete defeat of their elite fleet. Within 20 minutes, the survivors were in full retreat. The Council must formally acknowledge human military legitimacy, Rodriguez demanded. And the Krell must return all occupied human colonies with full reparations for damages. The chamber was silent except for the Krell representative's heavy breathing. 4 more Council races had moved to stand near the Ellerin and Vexari representatives, clearly aligning with the humans. The balance of power has shifted today, the Ellerin chairperson announced. The Council will convene emergency negotiations. As Rodriguez left the chamber, she received a message from Earth Command. Well done, Admiral. The reckoning has come sooner than expected, but we are ready. The Council races had laughed at human guns. Now they understood just how serious a mistake that had been. The Grand Council chamber had been rearranged for the emergency peace negotiations. The traditional tiered seating was replaced by a single circular table, symbolizing the new reality of galactic politics. No longer were humans positioned below the established races. They now sat as equals. Dr. Amanda Foster, Earth's chief diplomat, entered the chamber flanked by 2 Earth Force officers. Her simple blue suit contrasted with the elaborate ceremonial attire of the other delegates. She carried only a small data tablet. The emergency session for resolution of the Krell-human conflict is now in session, announced the Ellerin chairperson. Dr. Foster will present the human terms. Foster stood, her expression calm despite the gravity of the moment. Earth requests 3 simple things: immediate withdrawal of all Krell forces from human territories, formal recognition of human sovereignty within our claimed systems, and reparations for damages to our colonies. The Krell delegate, a replacement for their previous representative who had been recalled in disgrace, slammed his fist on the table. Outrageous. The Krell Empire does not surrender territory, especially to primitive newcomers who threaten galactic stability with their dangerous weapons. Foster remained unruffled. These are not demands, but terms for lasting peace. We have no desire for Krell territory or continued conflict. The Zithari representative, who had once mocked human weapons, now spoke in a more measured tone. The human terms seem reasonable, given recent events. However, we must consider the broader implications of this technology. Indeed, Foster agreed. Which brings me to additional evidence Earth wishes to present. She activated her tablet, and holographic images appeared above the table. They showed detailed records of Krell violations of Council laws spanning decades, unauthorized weapons testing, secret territorial annexations, and evidence of interference with developing species. These records were provided to us by sources within the Council, Foster explained. They demonstrate a pattern of behavior that the Council has overlooked due to fear of Krell military power. The chamber erupted in loud discussions. The Vexari representative signaled for attention. The Vexari Confederation confirms the authenticity of these records. We have maintained similar archives, but lacked the military capability to challenge the Krell. 2 more Council races, the Tellarites and Muroans, indicated their support for the human position. The balance had clearly shifted, with 5 of the 7 Council races now aligned against the Krell. The Krell delegate stood suddenly, his hand moving toward a concealed weapon. This conspiracy will not stand. He lunged toward Foster, but the Earth Force officers moved with practiced precision. One blocked the Krell's arm while the other placed herself between Foster and danger. Council security forces converged on the table, surrounding the Krell delegation. The chairperson's voice cut through the chaos. This violation of diplomatic sanctuary confirms the evidence presented. The Krell delegation is hereby detained pending further investigation. As the Krell delegates were escorted out, Foster received an urgent message on her tablet. She read it quickly, then addressed the Council. I'd just been informed that Krell military vessels have begun mobilizing near their core systems. They appear to be preparing for a larger conflict. The chairperson turned to the remaining delegates. The Council must vote immediately on sanctions against the Krell Empire and support for human defensive actions. The vote was swift and decisive. For the first time in Council history, a unified decision was reached in minutes rather than days of debate. The Council formally recognizes Earth's territorial claims and authorizes joint military action to secure peace, the chairperson announced. The Krell will withdraw or face the combined forces of Council races. Foster nodded in satisfaction. She had achieved Earth's objectives without firing another shot. As she prepared to send her report to Earth Command, she reflected on how quickly everything had changed. Just days ago, humans had been dismissed as naive newcomers with obsolete weapons. Now they were key players in reshaping the galactic balance of power. The negotiations are concluded, the chairperson declared. A new era of galactic cooperation begins today. 6 months after the crisis, Captain John Miller stood on the observation deck of the Galactic Council station. The view had changed significantly since his first visit. Human ships now docked alongside vessels from all Council races, no longer relegated to the distant bays reserved for provisional members. It still feels strange to be welcomed here, Miller said to Admiral Rodriguez, who had joined him for the ceremony. Rodriguez smiled. Strange how quickly things change when you prove you can defend yourself. Below them, engineers from Earth worked alongside Ellerin and Vexari technicians, installing modified Thunderbolt defense systems on the station itself. The technology-sharing agreement had been one of the first outcomes of the new alliance. The Krell withdrawal from New Montana is complete, Rodriguez informed him. That was the last of our occupied colonies. Miller nodded. And their warships. Maintaining distance, our joint patrol fleet with the Vexari is ensuring they respect the new boundaries. A chime announced the approaching ceremony. Miller straightened his formal uniform and followed Rodriguez toward the Grand Council chamber. The room had been permanently rearranged, with Earth now occupying one of the 7 primary positions. Miller recognized many faces as he entered, some friendly, some still cautious. The Zithari representative, who had once openly mocked human weapons, now offered a respectful nod as Miller passed. The council recognizes Captain John Miller, who first represented humanity before this body, announced the chairperson. Today, we formally recognize Earth as a full council member with all rights and responsibilities thereof. Miller stepped forward to accept the ceremonial emblem of membership. As he did, he caught sight of a display case recently installed near the chamber entrance. Inside was an early Earth pistol, a simple revolver, alongside a cutting-edge Thunderbolt hand weapon. The plaque read, "From mockery to respect, the evolution of human defense technology." After the ceremony, military leaders from 3 council races approached Miller with questions about joint training programs. The Eloran admiral was particularly interested. "Your combat tactics are unconventional," she said. "Our forces have relied on energy weapons for so long that we've forgotten many physical combat principles. We're establishing a joint military academy on Mars," Miller replied. "We have as much to learn from you as you do from us." Later, Miller found himself alone with the Vexari ambassador Zexril, who had been the grading officer during first contact years ago. "I must confess something," Zexril said, his 4 arms making a gesture of humility. "I was among those who laughed at your weapons during your first visit." Miller smiled. "Many did. A costly mistake. We believed technological advancement moved in only one direction, toward energy manipulation and away from physical projectiles. We never considered that sometimes progress means revisiting old ideas with new understanding." The station viewport showed Earth ships conducting maneuvers alongside alien vessels, practicing formations that combine different technological approaches. "The Council is changing," Zexril continued. "For centuries, we were stagnant, believing we had reached the pinnacle of development. Your arrival has challenged that complacency." Miller watched as a small Earth vessel demonstrated its maneuverability for an audience of alien observers. Humanity has always thrived on challenges. We may have been late to join galactic society, but we brought fresh perspectives. "And formidable guns," Zexril added with good humor. As night fell by Earth reckoning, Miller stood alone at the viewport. Beyond the station and the assembled fleets, distant stars beckoned. Humanity had secured its place among those stars not through conquest, but by standing firm when threatened. The once laughable human guns had changed the galaxy's power structure, but Miller knew weapons alone didn't create peace. It was understanding between species that would build a lasting future. Earth's responsibility now was to help forge a galactic community where strength protected the weak rather than exploited them. A message appeared on his personal communicator, Earth Command offering him command of the first joint human-alien exploration mission to a distant sector. Miller accepted immediately. The stars awaited, and humanity would meet them not just with guns, but with curiosity, courage, and the wisdom gained from nearly losing everything.